Lucky me. Now there's no more child support. Let's get divorced.
What?
While preparing for my son's funeral, I was caught off guard by Sam's sudden words. I knew he was selfish, but this was something else.
There's a woman I want to marry, but she doesn't want kids.
So what?
If Matt were still alive, child support and medical bills would be taking all my money. Right, thank God.
How awful. I felt a coldness spread within me. To think that this person was Matt's father. My mind sharpened, and my insides boiled with anger.
I agree to the divorce.
Right, I'll take the house, so just hurry up and leave.
Let's at least wait until after the funeral.
Fine then.
Saying this, Sam went off somewhere. And on the day of the funeral, I read Matt's last words. Sam turned pale, and the relatives glared at him with faces like fierce masks. Now, it's time for my counterattack. My name is Amy. I'm a 42-year-old housewife. I used to work in a company doing translation work, but now I've switched careers and take freelance translation jobs. My husband, Sam, is 45 years old, 3 years my senior. I married him when I was 29, he was the account manager at a client company. The following year, our son Matt was born, but Sam was very selfish and hardly participated in raising him. Matt was very frail, constantly in and out of the hospital since birth. I often felt guilty for not being able to give birth to a stronger child. But Matt bravely faced his treatments and managed to hold on for 12 years. His condition worsened during his first rainy season when he turned 12. He couldn't stop coughing, his body rejected food, and his fever wouldn't subside. We rushed him to the hospital for N4, but his symptoms hardly improved.
Mom, I'm sorry for being hospitalized again.
There's nothing to apologize for. You'll get better, right?
Yeah, I'll try my best.
Matt said this with a weak smile. My eyes welled up at his smile, but I couldn't cry in front of Matt. I held back with all my might. While Matt finally managed to sleep a little, I called Sam. But no matter how many times I tried, the call wouldn't go through. Perhaps he was at a client meeting, so I stopped trying and switched to messaging. Sam's reply came the next morning. I immediately called him back. And this time he answered on the first ring.
What now? So early in the morning.
It's not what now. Why won't you come? Matt is fighting for his life.
Well, my being there won't cure his illness, right? Besides, hospital stays aren't free, you know.
Tell the doctor to discharge him as soon as possible.
What? How can you say that?
I can hear you. I'm off to work now.
Hey, wait.
Sam hung up without listening any further. Though Sam had always been somewhat indifferent towards Matt, he had never been this cruel before. I gripped my smartphone, shaking with anger. Even as the rainy season ended and summer began, Matt's condition did not improve. The doctor said he might not make it to winter, so I cut back on work to be with him as much as possible.
Mom, you've been here from morning till evening lately. Is your work okay?
It's okay. I'm managing it from home. So don't worry.
If you say so.
Matt's voice sounded unconvinced, and he looked troubled. Being the kind person he is, he probably worried that my job had disappeared or that he was being a burden. After that conversation, to avoid causing Matt any more stress, I started bringing my laptop and worked right in front of him. Matt loved reading, and he spent a lot of his days with books. He also liked studying and would participate in hospital classes when he felt up to it. I wanted to let him do anything he wished. However, Sam seemed very displeased with me, not only avoiding visiting Matt but also constantly complaining at home.
Hey, isn't he getting discharged yet? He's in a private room. Right, it's such a waste paying for the bed.
How can you say that when our son is fighting for his life? Why don't you visit him at least once?
I'm busy. Your visits are enough.
Sam remained unyielding and never came to visit. Even so, he is the father, and Matt must feel lonely. I thought about insisting, but I knew it was pointless to force a reluctant Sam. During this time, Sam often came home drunk in the early hours, always reeking of alcohol. Though he claimed it was for client entertainment, the lipstick on his shirts and hotel receipts suggested infidelity. He couldn't make time for Matt, yet he found time for another woman. My love for Sam had run dry, but I feared a divorce would sadden Matt. I endured, thinking this way. Then Matt's condition worsened significantly. Summoned by his doctor, I was told something shocking.
Unfortunately, he has about a month left.
Can't you do something, doctor?
There's nothing more we can do.
As I broke down crying, the doctor assured me, we will do our best until the end. After consulting with the doctor for about half a month, we continued treatment, but as expected, Matt's condition deteriorated rapidly.
I guess it's almost my time.
What are you talking about? There's still so much you want to do.
While encouraging him, I cried when Matt couldn't see me. Finally, the doctor said further treatment was pointless, and I decided to bring Matt home for his last days.
Can we go home?
Yes, the doctor said it would be good to change the scenery for a few days.
Yay!
Matt's voice was weak, yet childlike, and I struggled to hold back tears. I told Sam about it, but he just said, and wandered off somewhere. This man is hopeless. I had completely given up on Sam. Discharge was scheduled for tomorrow evening, and I busied myself with preparing the house and handling the discharge procedures. While packing Matt's belongings, he suddenly spoke up.
Mom, do you still love Dad?
What?
His question caught me off guard, and I stopped in my tracks. Undeterred, Matt continued.
Dad doesn't seem interested in me, or you, so, if you don't love Dad, I want you to divorce and live your life the way you want.
Matt?
Matt must have realized things weren't going well between Sam and me. But as a parent, I couldn't let him face the end worrying about us. I quickly put on a smile and responded.
What are you talking about? Of course, I love your dad.
He cares about us, Matt, he really does, he's just too busy to visit often, that's all, so don't worry, okay?
But, okay, yeah.
Matt didn't seem convinced, but he stopped pressing the issue. He fell asleep shortly after, and I sighed in relief by his side. 2 days later, Matt passed away at home. Sam never showed up until the end, and I stayed by Matt's side, holding his hand until his last moment.
Matt.
As I remembered everything from the time he was in my womb until now, I clung to his cooling body and wept loudly. The doctor and a nurse who had cared for him since he was a child came, shared in the morning, and explained the next steps. One of them pulled a letter from their bag and handed it to me.
This is from Matt. He asked me to give this to you if anything happened.
From Matt?
I took the letter, bowing deeply to the doctor and nurse. I was alone without Sam's help, and they had been incredibly supportive to both Matt and me through his illness. I was profoundly grateful. After they left, I opened the letter beside Matt, and I exclaimed in surprise at the contents.
What is this?
The letter from Matt contained his gratitude and something shocking. Reading it, I felt my insides boil with anger. Even as the funeral director came to discuss arrangements, my mind was consumed with the letter. Still, I made the necessary decisions to ensure Matt's funeral would be small yet heartfelt. The day before the funeral, Sam finally showed up, reeking of alcohol as usual. I no longer had the energy to confront him strongly. Sam, perhaps noticing my exhaustion, nonchalantly remarked, "You've aged," as he took a new bottle of alcohol from the fridge and started drinking.
Tomorrow is Matt's funeral. Where have you been?
I told you, I was at work. What's with all the nagging?
Why did I ever marry this man? No, without marrying him, I wouldn't have had Matt. My thoughts were a mess.
Matt is no longer with us.
Oh, that's right, he replied, as if he had lost a distant relative, not his son.
Anger bubbled up inside me at his indifference. But I knew arguing with such a person was pointless. With that thought, I decided to confirm the arrangements for tomorrow's funeral.
Lucky me. Now there's no more child support. Let's get divorced.
What?
While I was preparing for the funeral, Sam suddenly said that to me, and I could not hide my shock. I knew he was selfish, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined.
There's a woman I want to marry, but she doesn't want kids.
So what?
If Matt were still alive, child support and medical bills would be taking all my money. Right, thank God.
How terrible. I felt a chill go through me. That this man was Matt's father. My mind was clear, but my insides were boiling.
I agree to the divorce.
Right, then I'll take the house, so just hurry up and leave.
Wait until the funeral is over at least.
Fine then.
With that, Sam left for somewhere. On the day of the funeral, I read Matt's will. Sam's face turned pale, and the relatives glared at him with fierce expressions. Now, it was time to fight back. The will I read revealed Sam's infidelity. Until I started reading, Sam had been acting like a grieving father, dramatically crying over the loss of his beloved son.
No, how could such a letter?
No, it's not true, it's a prank from Matt, right, Amy? I felt bad for not visiting more because of work, but to do this. Sam tried to cover up even now, and it was disgraceful. Silently, I pulled an envelope from my bag and thrust the photos in front of Sam.
What? You took pictures secretly?
Would it be a problem if the relationship with the person you're arm in arm with in these photos got out?
No.
As Sam stammered, his face still pale, I smiled and asked the relatives to pass around a few photographs. Disgust and small cries of shock echoed around.
The worst.
Not visiting his frail son, but being with this woman in such a disgraceful manner.
The look Sam received grew even harsher, and he collapsed to the ground. To this Sam, I presented the divorce papers. Sam suddenly looked up at me. His voice almost breaking into tears as he clung to me.
It was just fun because you weren't there for me. I was just having fun. Please forgive me. I don't want a divorce.
You're not a child. I asked you many times to help me care for him, didn't I? You always said you were too busy with work.
But caring for someone sick is dirty.
The moment Sam said that, he vanished from in front of me, and the next thing I knew, he was crawling on the floor. Beside him was my father-in-law, gasping for breath.
What do you mean caring for your sick son is dirty? Don't spew such tripe.
A parent who doesn't care for their sick child isn't really a parent at all. You're the lowest of the low.
My in-laws had always adored Matt from the time he was born. Every time he was hospitalized, they would celebrate his recovery with a meal out, buy him his favorite things, and never missed a visit. They had been deceived by Sam's excuses of being busy at work, never imagining their own son could be such a heartless person. My in-laws glared at Sam, tears streaming down their faces, not even bothering to wipe them away. Sam, likely slapped for the first time, held his cheek in shock.
Amy, I'm terribly sorry.
If I had known he was such a man, I would have urged you to divorce him right away. I'm truly sorry.
As my in-laws began to kneel, I hurriedly helped them up. My in-laws were not at fault. Matt loved them dearly, and the reason I hadn't divorced Sam was because of them.
Father-in-law, mother-in-law, neither of you are at fault.
Look, Matt even wrote in his letter how much he thanks you and wishes you well. Both Matt and I love you dearly.
Amy, thank you. I'm so sorry. Matt,
My mother-in-law clung to me and began to sob quietly. My father-in-law, too, bowed his head to me, tears streaming down his face. Across from them, Sam seemed to come back to his senses. Suddenly standing up, he pointed at me and shouted.
Are you kidding me? Why are you bowing to this woman? She's just an old lady. A wife you can't even take care of her husband.
Sam, you.
Oops.
As my father-in-law moved to confront Sam again, I stepped in front of Sam. Despite my smile, Sam glared at me, trying to intimidate me while looking frightened.
What? You got a problem?
Not really, this is reality.
No one here is on your side, and make sure to pay back the money you've borrowed from various people, haven't you?
Why do you know about that?
At my words, the relatives who had lent Sam money began to stir. After reading Matt's letter, I had been contacting relatives. The activities Sam was involved in, as described by Matt, were very expensive. The woman Sam was infatuated with was someone from the nightlife industry, who loved extravagant things like buying designer goods and going on international trips. Sam was paying for all of it, but his salary alone could never cover such expenses. Realizing this, I checked with relatives to see if anyone had lent Sam money under the pretense of covering Matt's medical expenses. It turned out that not only Sam's relatives but also mine had lent him money. Initially, I thanked them and mentioned the repayment casually. But now, given the situation, the relatives who had lent money realized it wasn't for Matt but for Sam's affair.
Are you kidding me? I lent it for Matt's sake. Pay back the $10,000 right now.
Me too. Pay back $20,000.
This set off a chain reaction, with various amounts and demands for repayment being shouted. Sam, looking around at the voices, turned pale. Then he looked at me and gave a sheepish smile.
Amy, we're married. You'll help me out, right?
What? Are you serious? You didn't help with the care.
You didn't contribute to the medical or living expenses, instead, you borrowed from everyone for your own selfish needs. Unbelievable, there's no way I'd help you.
Don't say that, please.
With a pitiful voice, Sam slumped down again. Apparently out of energy to argue. Looking down at Sam, I called over to the entrance, ready to deliver the final blow.
Mary, please come in.
Mary, why is she here?
Sam looked toward the entrance with a face that seemed about to collapse in shock. The woman called Mary walked towards me timidly. Her light makeup made her look much plainer than in the photos.
I invited her on Matt's last day. She was with you, and I thought it only right she attend the funeral.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, no need for such superficial words.
At my words, Mary firmly shut her mouth. Her complexion was as pale as Sam's. When she reached me, I handed her a document.
I called you here today to sign this. Please read it carefully and then sign.
What? $50,000. I can't pay that.
Whether you can pay or not isn't for you to decide.
As I spoke, Mary looked at me with pleading eyes, but I was irritated by her gesture, but I had no intention of confronting her about it now. Sam, trembling, stood between me and Mary.
What?
It's my fault, so, could you please forgive Mary? $50,000 is such a harsh amount to demand.
Why? I'm just asking for the price of the affair.
At my words, Sam furrowed his brows and sighed heavily. I wanted to make that gesture myself, thinking angrily inside, but I waited for what Sam would say next.
That's because Mary is fragile unlike you. How do you expect her to make $50,000 by selling herself?
What a terrible person you are.
Sam.
Mary clung dreamily to Sam's back, and he seemed pleased with himself. They weren't the only ones under my cold gaze. I might have stayed silent and let the relatives tear into him, but I decided to add more fuel to the fire.
Your son, he's hospitalized, isn't he?
My son.
Mary flinched. I continued.
He's the same age as Matt, 12, and has been in the hospital for a long time.
Your ex-husband took him, right? It must be tough, with hospital and treatment costs, not to mention the bed fees. You must be getting quite the bill on top of child support, aren't you?
Why do you know that?
Mary looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. Sam remained frozen, stunned by her words. I pulled out a document from my bag and handed it to Sam. After trembling, Sam suddenly pushed Mary away from him.
Ouch.
What do you mean, divorced?
With a child, you never mentioned that. Didn't you say you needed the money for family living far away?
I'm not lying. A son is family too.
I was dating a used-up woman. What about true love? You were just after my money.
You were only after my body too.
Mary said this and took off her shoe, hurling it at Sam. Enraged, Sam lunged at Mary. Their childish scuffle was halted by a security guard called by someone. I approached the disheveled pair with a smile and spoke up.
Sam, I'll need your signature on the divorce papers, and I'll be expecting payment for alimony.
Mary, I won't cut even a penny from your settlement. And a message from your ex-husband, cheating seems to be an incurable disease for you. I hear you've been seeing several men. But if you can afford that, you can afford to pay the alimony, back child support, and medical bills. We'll be enforcing collection.
So unfair.
Wordless, Sam hung his head, and Mary, her shoulders slumped, was escorted away by the security guard. I apologized to each relative for the commotion, and they kindly comforted me, bringing me to tears. After that, my divorce from Sam was finalized. And we agreed on the alimony amount as I had demanded. The incident infuriated my in-laws tremendously. The relatives were also enraged to learn they had been deceived, and Sam was completely ostracized. Apparently, he had to return all the money he misused in one lump sum and had resorted to borrowing from dubious sources to cover it. To repay the debt. He's been juggling multiple part-time jobs daily. But I heard rumors that he's struggling to make ends meet due to the excessive repayment amounts. Eventually, unable to keep up with the ballooning interest, last month some intimidating men took him away. The in-laws have no intention of filing a missing person report, hoping he's at least safe but wishing him the suffering he deserves. As for Mary, after it was revealed to all her boyfriends that she had been unfaithful and had a child, all financial support was cut off. At 30, she's considered too old for nightlife work. Struggled to attract clients, and eventually had to turn to her parents, who promptly paid her settlement in full. Afterwards, she was sent to work on a farm on some island, where her salary goes directly to repaying her parents. As for myself, I moved with Matt's memorial tablet to a house near the sea he always wanted to see. And I got the cat he had always wanted. I live there alone, enjoying the visits from my in-laws, where we reminisce about Matt. Another letter from Matt arrived for me later. It contained many thanks. An apology for passing away so soon, and a wish to be my child again in another life, written in slightly smudged script. The letter ended with, "Mom, stay just as you are, be always healthy, and live a long life." It inspired me to live true to myself, for Matt's sake as well. Overcoming the sadness of not being able to see my beloved child grow, I continue to live each day to the fullest.